Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Tom Thibodeau's adopted son. The Knicks, baby, the Knicks.
I can't do a good tip. I apologize.
Kind of makes up for the Reggie Miller thing a few years ago,
huh? A little bit. Yeah. So, just this Knicks-Sixers game, before we get to NFL draft stuff, the playoffs of the NBA needs to be discussed because the Knicks, all intents and purposes, Jalen Brunson has not played well the first two games of the series. He has been bad.
That's right.
So, he's been bad. And Julius Randle, your other best player, is out for the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So your two best players pretty much have not done a lot of anything for you. It has been Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, Isaiah Hartenstein, OG Anunoby, Miles McBride, Bogdanovich. It's been everyone else playing well for the Knicks.
Well, look, let's start with what the Sixers are doing. Mm-hmm. Nick Nurse, and excuse the use of the word here, is making the gamble on Hart. Mm-hmm. Who's a 27% three-point shooter. Mm-hmm. So he is throwing an extra guy at Brunson, and they're letting Hart get open threes, and it's being done. You're open for a reason. Mm-hmm. Well, that's why it's referred to as the gamble, because Hart's been hitting his shots. Not all of them, but he's hit enough of them where, quote, the gamble has not paid off to this point. And that's where that's been the roll of the dice for him. That this guy is not a good three-point shooter for the most part, and it's something that that as a coach, like I'm not going to sit there and criticize somebody who's sitting there looking at the numbers.
Yeah,
I'll go back to. Last year, it was the women's Final Four, and Iowa was playing South Carolina. And Johnson for South Carolina, I'll never forget that. They really disrespected her, right? I remember after the game, because Iowa won the game. And they were talking about how they disrespected her. No, over here in the back, that's brilliant coaching, where they look at it and say, look, I'm going to double your post player because, she was a 19% three-point shooter. But disrespect her. You're open for a reason. Okay? It's up to you to make the strategy backfire. Well, she didn't make the strategy backfire.
Yeah.
Right? And disrespecting her? No, that's good scouting. Okay, it's a simple. That's not one of those like we poured through mountains of tape to look at it. They looked at the stat sheet and went, "She's 19%. Where does she shoot from? Oh, the wing. Okay, great. Well, guess what? We're going to double.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just good coaching. Well, Nurse is trying to do the same thing, running a second person at Brunson, which has thrown Brunson off his game. But the problem has been Hart has allowed the strategy, which is a solid one, to not work.
Yeah,
and I didn't use the word backfire.
And even when he doesn't shoot and he drives, he'll drive. Someone's going to have to come over to stop him because he's going to have a straight line to the basket. So what does he do? He kicks it. He finds someone else. And funnily enough, pretty much every Knick, besides like Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein, shoots threes.
Right.
All of them. Anunoby shoots. DiVincenzo's shooting like 50 a game. Bogdanovich can shoot well. McBride can shoot well. They all, Alec Burks when he plays, they all shoot the three ball really well. Yeah. So like, it's a good idea in theory to shut down Brunson because if your best player in the series is not playing well, usually it's kind of the downfall of your team, and especially when you have your other best player hurt.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. But if there's one team you can't do it against, it's the Knicks because like they're going to chuck the threes up because that's what they want to do. They want to shoot a million threes and draw a million fouls, and that is what this team does. Right. And they do it really well. The other part of this before we're not even going to discuss Embiid because that's a whole deal of he's clearly still hurt. We can all tell. Maxey played through all the health things he had yesterday. Apparently he was sick, but he played. He played really well, so shout out to him. But they have no role players that are doing much of anything scoring-wise for them. Tobias Harris is generally a non-factor. Kyle Lowry's a non-factor. Oubre. Like, your two best players can only carry you so far.
Right.
And the reason the Knicks are playing well is because all of their players are playing well. Not their best player, but everyone else is doing what they have to do.
What does it tell you that they keep challenging the fifth foul on Lowry all the time, and he's only sort of helping them?
Yeah,
it's like, okay,
because Buddy Hield's been a dud.
but
you brought him in to be a 3-point shooter, and he can't do anything.
I said when they acquired him, and Dick Girardi and I both talked about this. I said the two of us were laughing because I said the Sixer fans think this guy's the answer. Like, we're laughing. This is the day they made the trade. This is not 2020 hindsight. It was like, you got to be kidding me. Really? Okay, great. And that's where they are with this team, right? The officiating part.
I was going to say, before we get to the last sequence where there was the drive to the basket and then the Maxey things and timeouts, before we get there, Dante DiVincenzo with like a minute 20 left gets a rebound, gets hit on the back of the head and on the arms, and gets called for a foul. He didn't touch a person. He got hit getting a ball down.
Right.
And then they went and reviewed it and said it wasn't a foul on DiVincenzo, wasn't fouled. He fouled someone else. And the Knicks were like, what? Everyone says, like, that's not what happened. You could very clearly see he got hit in the head and then hit in the shoulder and then lost the ball. And they said he fouled somebody, which didn't make sense. So this happens first. And then we come to the next batch of plays of absurdity, I guess is what you could call it, where Brunson makes this 3-ball where the ball, you need luck to be on your side. He makes the 3. And then immediately after the fact, Tyrese Maxey tries to get the inbound and does get fouled. His jersey's getting pulled by Josh Hart.
He's clearly grabbed. I mean, I got that. But here's the bottom line. Okay. I know that Nurse is trying to call a timeout, but he's not. Like, you call a timeout in the NBA, you step on the floor, you call a timeout.
He's just doing this.
Right.
He's sitting here like this in his spot for the first time. He's trying to call a timeout like this.
Here's the bottom line. Grab a rebound. I mean, you keep telling us over and over again, oh, this is the MVP. Well, I've now watched the MVP in the last 2 games not get key rebounds. And don't tell me he had 34 and 10. That's one of the worst 34 and 10 games I've ever seen in my life. I mean, you cannot judge games on stats. You have to judge games on the visual to match the stats.
Yeah.
And in that case, he's boxing out the wrong guy. He's trying to box out Josh Hart. Like the 7-foot guy over here. How about him?
Yeah. Hartenstein, by the way, comes in. There are 4 Sixers player. He jumps through them and gets the rebound, pulls it down, is able to then turn, find OG Anunoby with a good bounce pass, gets into him. OG then feeds DiVincenzo, who is wide open for a 3-pointer. Like, out of all things you could do as the Sixers, if you're all going to crash the glass, you have to get the rebound. But if you're not going to get the rebound, you better stay home on the 3-point shooter, the guy who's been one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA this season, a guy who has chucked up like 18 a game, just on a commonplace at this point. Like, you didn't stay home on him, and you also didn't get the rebound. You let a guy who come from way outside the play run in, jump, and get the rebound over all of you.
I know.
Like, it just makes no sense. And I get the whole Nick Nurse was trying to call a timeout. The first one he was trying to call, as you just said, he was just standing there trying to call it very, like, calmly, which doesn't make sense. If you're him in that case, I am running on the floor, like, running, jumping, shouting timeout as I hit my microphone. Like, I'm flying all over the place, flailing. The second one, he runs at the referee trying to call timeout, but at that point, Maxey's lost the ball.
Right.
Doesn't matter anymore.
That's right.
Before Max loses the ball anyway, Maxey's on the ground next to Nick Nurse.
Yeah,
he could call timeout. You have so many options of things that could have happened that don't result in this outcome, which doesn't make it like.
Again,
the Sixers are saying, "Oh, the ref, like we're going to challenge these first two games because the refs were terrible." The refs weren't great, but like it's what they've been all season.
How many offensive rebounds do you give up to the Knicks in game one? 27?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At a key moment in the game last night, you gave up an offensive rebound that led to a three that put the Knicks in front.
Yeah.
Right? Kyle Lowry's on a break and loses the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, it's got to come down to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Stop looking at everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You grab the rebound, the game's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay? You box out the right guy, you're going to get the rebound. He boxes out the wrong guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's the MVP of what?
He's been saying, his interview after the game was also, we're the better team. We're going to win this series. So far, you're not the better team. You're 0-2 in the series. So no, you have not been the better team. In which game did you score more points? Neither of them? Cool. So you're not the better team, number one. Number two, the Knicks' best player has played terribly.
Well,
and you're still...
But the reason is, in part, what Nick Nurse decided to do with him.
Again, he has not... Regardless, he has not shot the ball well. And so you like even when he's been one-on-one and he's had a good jump shot, he's not shot the ball well in general in the series. So them saying, "Oh, but when we're the better team," imagine he plays well. Imagine he shoots the ball well. Yeah, all of a sudden, you're down by 20 points in each game.
When they've needed him to be the gutty guy on the floor to make a play, he's been the gutty guy on the floor.
He's done what he's had to do. He's made the shot when he's had to make the shot.
Look, it's not as if, I give Maxey credit. He missed the shoot around because he was sick yesterday. He still went out. He played for the most part really well. But there's more to it than that. And this does come down to your execution in key moments. They gave up. Okay, did the referees give them 27 offensive rebounds in game one? No. Okay, did the referees box out the wrong guy in game two? No. I mean, and again, is Maxey clearly grabbed on the inbounds play? No question. Did they miss it? No question. But at that point, the Sixers, who were challenging the fifth foul the entire time on Kyle Lowry, don't have a challenge.
Yeah.
They don't have a challenge. And, that's because they wanted to keep Lowry in the game. They challenged the fifth foul twice. They won one, they lost the other. Like, okay, well, maybe if you saved it for actually a strategic moment.
Also, another thing for me, which I think is weird, is I know like when I played basketball, of course, I never played in the NBA, but we always had the rule of one person on the court at all times is the guy who, like, if there's like something going wrong and you're near the referee, you get to call timeout. Like you're the person who knows how many timeouts we have left.
Sure.
None of these 5 NBA players in their heads thought, I should probably call timeout here because they just tied the game up. I shouldn't try and call timeout at all. Like when there's this very botched play happen and call timeout, calm us down, calm MSG down a little bit because it was rocking at that point.
Well, not only that, if you call timeout there, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know what how many timeouts they had left.
I had at least one.
Okay, but you can advance the ball.
Yeah.
Well, now, guess what? You've got all the options now as to where you're throwing the ball in from because instead of trying to throw it in a 50-foot wide area, oh, and by the way, the basket's there, so you can't really throw it over the top to the left. You now have 94 feet to work with.
And
right? Left, right, and unobstructed to throw the ball in. And you've got the ball at that end of the floor.
And you're up 101-99 at that point.
Yes.
But then because you don't call timeout, the Knicks get the ball, all that stuff happens. DiVincenzo makes a 3. It's 102-101. And then the Knicks get the rebound. Anunoby gets a rebound on the other end because Isaiah Hartenstein makes a spectacular block Like Maxey is blown by him, but he recovers, makes the block from behind, does really well. Anunoby rebounds it. And if he doesn't get it, by the way, Josh Hart is next to him. For whatever reason, the Sixers don't try and crash the glass when you're trying to take the lead at all. And two Knicks wide open to get the rebound.
Look, this is
just
the problem.
Absurd.
This is the problem when you don't have a fundamentally sound team. And that's the problem that the Sixers have had for years.
Yeah.
They have not had a fundamentally sound team, which is why they lose key games, key moments, and get lost on the floor at times. They get lost on the floor at times. You talk about the ability to call a timeout by a player. That's because they don't have players out there that know what the situation is.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem.
Very much so.
And look, I mean, are they the better team? Okay, do they have the best player? Yes.
Yes.
When he's fully healthy, yes.
They have the first and third best players in the series, which gives you a leg up.
And that's the problem. They don't.
They don't play like a team.
No, they don't. It's essentially a two-man game. Now, I'd like to point out the Lakers lost last night because they ran the two-man game to perfection for about 43 to 48 minutes last night.
I wouldn't even say 43, 48. I would say through the third quarter, and then it was over.
Then went away from it. They actually went away from the two-man game, and then they lost a 20-point lead in the game. And again, LeBron after the game walked out because he said the officiating was bad.
Yeah.
Okay, at some point in the 48 minutes, was there something you could have done? I mean, it's easy to blame officials. I got that because I'll do games and the game's over. You're like, oh, what the heck happened out there?
Like Georgia Tech, for instance, Penn State, where it's like very clearly just a bad call.
Just a bad call in a one-point game that then turns into a one-point loss, right? When, if it's called correctly, because, I mean, there's about 2 feet between the two guys, so nobody's touching anybody. There's no foul. And he just botched it. Okay, that happens. The Maxey grab of the jersey last night, okay, it's not a good play. But it's compounded by the fact that the Sixers should have called it. If they're like, we're trying to call timeout, how about calling timeout after the basket and advancing the ball?
Yeah.
Let's try that. I've seen teams with the lead do that a lot because guess what? It puts, at minimum, it puts the ball at the other end of the floor.
Yeah. And also, it gives you the guy who's the fastest player on the court by like a good 3 or 4 steps, the ability to run anywhere and get the ball.
But it also puts the ball at the other end of the court where even if you turn it over,
it's way more difficult for the Knicks to run down to get a shot off.
It's like, that's why you sit back and go, and it's the officiating. How about like you guys blew it? Like, you're right. The officials made a couple bad calls. You made bad plays. You had bad coaching moves. Whoops.
Yeah.
And 2 of the 3 are on you.
Yeah. And the reason the Lakers are mad of officiating is because I think they were up like 72-64 when D'Angelo Russell drives the basket. A foul's called on Michael Porter Jr. The broadcast, I think it was Reggie and Van Gundy, were like, don't call a challenge here. Like, you could see he hits him on the face. Michael Porter Jr. hits him on the face. They call it challenge and it's overturned. And that was what LeBron was mad about, is because D'Lo gets hit in the face on Michael Porter Jr.'s arm coming down from the shot going up. Foul's called, and then it's overturned by Scott Foster. And he's like, how dare you? And I get it. I get the, like, why is that, like, getting overturned? But I feel more sadness for the Sixers because theirs happened with 20 seconds, 10 seconds ago. The Lakers happened when it was middle of the third quarter, beginning of the third quarter, when they were already losing their lead anyway. It didn't matter at that point. Like, AD went 14 of 19. He played a great game. He played really well. D'Angelo Russell, 7 for 11 from 3. It's really good. Like, noticeably really good, just based on the statistics alone. But then you look and you're like, the Lakers just didn't give me anything. Like, they were up 20,
Right.
and you never felt safe. I saw it on social media. They're up 20. I was like, they're going to lose. They're going to find a way to lose, and it's because the Nuggets are just better than them. Like, they're just better. Doesn't matter that you've been up 20 and been up 12 in each game.
Right.
Like, you got to, I don't know, close the game out and win the game at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Part of being a closer is
It's closing out games.
you have to close.
And
Part of being a closer goes back to the point we made about the Sixers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You strategically advance the ball
yeah.
because now with the lead, you're at this end of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, even if you turn it over, now you're at a point where now they're going to be forced to foul you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, and guess what? Even if you miss the free throw, the second one, you're still at that end of the floor.
Yeah.
It's like,
And
okay, does anybody understand this concept?
not at all. And part of my, sometimes there's teams that are like, we deserve to win this game, whatever. Lakers are saying, we won this game, the ref screwed us. Okay, whatever, cool. If you get rid of Michael Porter Jr.'s...
What's your excuse for being the 7th seed?
Exactly. But you get rid of Michael Porter Jr. and Nikola Jokic's three-point shooting for the game. Jamal Murray, KCP, Aaron Gordon, Reggie Jackson, Christian Brown, Justin Holiday, Peyton Watson. A combined 0 for 20 from 3.
Right.
0 for 20 for all of those guys. KCP and Murray had 0 for 9 combined.
Right.
0 for 20 from 3. If any one of them made a single 3, it would have been over regardless. Didn't matter at that point. Like, a single player out of 7 has to make a 3.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter at that point anymore, LeBron. Like, you got carried by the fact that D'Lo went lights out from 3. AD had a great first half, had a terrible second half. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it with the Lakers. The whole we're better than them. No, you're not. You're not better than the Nuggets. The Nuggets have been very clearly and above and beyond the best team in the NBA, in the West at least.
Yeah.
Like, all season it's been said, they're going to turn it on at some point and they're going to win games.
Right.
And they waited until the second half, they turned it on, and they won games. Jamal Murray is a great playoff closer. He's shown it time and time again,
He's done
and he
very
did
well.
it again.
I will quickly say this about Porter. All right. With everything going on around him that does not involve him, just because it's your brothers, okay, doesn't mean it involves him. Right? He's got one brother is permanently banned.
One brother's permanently
and the
banned,
other
one
one
brother's
is-
arrested.
and the other one's arrested. He's been able to keep his head together and play basketball,
Yeah.
despite what obviously would have to affect anybody. I mean, I know Jerry wouldn't care. Jerry just does the show no matter what.
Oh, boy.
But I mean, let's give credit where credit's due the guy, because that could be something that would throw a lot of people off.
Yeah.
And he's been able, now that was the first game. I think it was the first game after everything came down. I guess the first game
was game 1.
Jonte was out.
Yeah.
Right. The second one was
His
other
brother was out.
Now, he probably knew some of this was coming.
Yeah.
But I give him a lot of credit for being able to keep his wits about him, play the game, concentrate on the matter at hand, and get it done. Now, it does not hurt that Nikola Jokic is his teammate.
Yeah. Jokic went 27 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists. I know we don't look at stat lines all the time, but 27, 20, and 10 ain't half bad.
Jokic is
crazy.
Jokic is remarkable in that, except for pure size, this dude does not look like a basketball player.
No, he doesn't.
And to his credit, he's smooth bringing the ball up. he's a brilliant passer, excellent rebounder, and it's like, to his credit, he just seems like the kind of guy who's got a beautiful feel for the game. But he makes everything look effortless, despite the fact that he is a physically big man.
Yeah.
Right? Like you watch Embiid drive to the bucket, it's like, and he finishes and he's great and the whole thing.
It looks clunky.
Right. Jokic doesn't.
No.
He had in the first quarter last night, he had a lay-in where he hit a three. Then the next time down the floor, he drove and just put this little floater in there that just barely rippled the twine, and the Lakers called timeout.
Yeah.
Like, oh, geez, now he's scoring.
Yeah. And the biggest note on Jokic, which many people need to remember, is he might be Dick Girardi's favorite player in the world because he loves horses.
He does love horses.
That's a big thing.
Let me put it this way, though. There are a lot of people in sports that love horses. So he's one of them.
So the Lakers down 0-2, Sixers down 0-2. Magic also lost. They're down 0-2. Jalen Suggs went out very early in this game with what looks to be a knee injury.
Yeah.
We don't have details yet on what it is. We're hoping it's not serious because he's been great. They clearly missed him last night. He's been defensively strong, and you needed him against everyone in this Cavs team. But they're now down 0-2 to the Cavs.
Yeah, and they made a run in the second half last night, but it got within 10. I mean, really, so far Cleveland has controlled them. I watched a little bit of that on NBA TV last night, and when I mean a little bit, I mean a little bit.
Yeah, and tonight should be fun. It's the Suns, Timberwolves, Pacers, Bucks, Mavs, Clippers. We'll see if Damian Lillard can do it again, if he can put 35 points up in the first half like he did last time, and then put up a big fat 0 in the second half. Or if Anthony Edwards again will outduel Kevin Durant, and then what the heck is going to happen with the Clippers Mavericks? Like, there's so many questions with all these series. It could swing any way with any team on any given night. We don't know, but it's going to be interesting to watch, and we'll break those results down tomorrow here on the show. But speaking of results, Steve, the results of the draft are, of course, a few days away. Yesterday we talked running backs, receivers, quarterbacks. Today is the offensive line and the tight ends. And I know I'm so sorry to all fullbacks out there, but we're not going to talk fullback today. Where would you like to start on the O-line?
Well, I mean, it's three guys right away that jump out. Alt from Notre Dame, Olu from Penn State, and Latham from Alabama are the three that jump out right away. I talked yesterday about the Olu thing. He's the best pass blocker of the three, without question. His footwork, his arm length, how he utilizes both to protect. He didn't give up any pressures this year, let alone a sack.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of security any team needs. I know the Jets were here, and they had a long, hard look at him. And in fact, when he was done working out, the Jets left. The Jets did not stay to watch other people work out. They
came for Olu.
As soon as Olu was done with his workout, the Jets contingent left. They picked 10. Your Saints are sitting there at what, 14?
We're at 14. Do we know if anyone from the Saints was here by chance?
Everybody was here. Yes. All 32 teams were here. Right? The Saints sent the equipment guy. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Honestly, if it's Dennis Allen, there's a chance that would happen.
Just so you know, I actually have been to the Saints facility.
Hey,
I have.
It's beautiful. Oceanor's beautiful.
It's very nice. So Alt is the better run blocker of the two.
He's also 6'9". Ted's wild.
Huge.
He's gigantic.
But Olu's a better pass blocker than Alt is. And I'm saying it's a couple of games that I watched where like, okay, and they made a big deal out of him. Like, okay, so I specifically watched some of it, and I liked a lot of what I saw. But there's a couple things that like, okay, but he'll be a surefire. He'll probably be the first guy off the board among the linemen. Olu probably will be second. Latham will be third.
You've got Troy Fontenot from Washington who's cracked that top 5
Right. And again,
O-line spot.
And again, let's look. The people who follow the draft religiously watch all these guys. They watch them all. Okay? I'm broadcasting games. I'm following the ball. Now, can I see blocks in the open field? And as part of my play-by-play, as you know, I'll say, he gets a block from Norzad at the 50s. You know, now I'll mention that. But I'm not sitting there the entire time. Like, I can't really lock in on the offensive line because I'm locking in on the ball and personnel. So, I'll see replays on TV of other games. Believe it or not, I don't see many replays on Penn State. And people say, well, why not? Now, at home I do. Because Jack has that TV. No, he's got it's right next to us. I can look to my right, I can see it. We're on the road, except for Minnesota. TVs are up on the top area.
You can't really look easily.
Where the person that can see it better than anybody else is Bob Taylor, our engineer. This is not a joke. I'm not making a joke here with this. I'm explaining the number of times Jack has said to me, he says, I wish people would ask you how to set up a broadcast booth. He says, because I don't get it. And see, Indiana doesn't have a monitor, but too many people have it where it's upward. Like we configure the booth in such a way where Jack has the best view of seeing it. So it's, like you always sit in the same spot. No. So if I have to sit on the right, I'll sit on the right. I have to sit on the left. I could care less, right? It's whether he can. That way he can pick up on something he saw out there and look at it, right? So when people say, well, what'd you think about this guy, and looking at the replays, I'm like, the only time I look at the replays is I'll get myself in a position to take a long, hard look at it if it is challenged on the field. Then I'll go and I'll figure out a spot to go back and look at it, because normally the monitor's literally directly over my head. Right? And fans would never know that. They would never know that's how it's configured. Minnesota puts one right there on the table, which is perfect.
Shout out to Minnesota.
Minnesota, to their credit, when they built that stadium, and I was told this to many people, and I took a tour of it right when it was finished, because we were playing basketball there. He said, you want to go over and see it? I said, sure. To their credit, they thought of almost everything. There's going to be something you're going to miss along the way, but they thought of almost everything.
They went through the whole,
right, and including what they do in that booth. So that's why when I talk about offensive linemen, there's certain things I can talk about, and there are other things where, for me to break down who's the best center in the draft, I have to take my time and look at tape of the Big Ten guys, of teams that Penn State's playing to get ready, and I do have to vote. So I do take a look at some guys because I know I have to vote down the road, and I don't want to be sitting there and guessing about it when it comes to it. But have I looked at the Alabama and Washington offensive lines? Of course not. Right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have, because I haven't. I'll look at the Washington offensive line this year. Penn State's playing them. So that's where it becomes a little more difficult. That's the one spot on the field where it's more difficult than anything else for me to give a gauge as to what a guy's like. I could talk about, let's talk about edge rushers, which we did yesterday. Verse from Florida. Well, I watched a couple of Florida games this year. He sticks out. So you could talk about what he's done to this point. But it's the offensive line is a little more difficult.
And just in terms of the players who you've mentioned so far, the only other guy from a guard center position who's kind of note, Graham Barton for Duke, played left tackle for them, is looking like he's going to move to center, but the versatility is there for him to kind of move where he wants to. And then at tackle, as you've discussed, Joe Alt, Troy Fontenot for ESPN is ranked second, then Olu, Amarius Mims from Georgia should be a first rounder, and same with J.C. Latham. Those are the top 5 guys you're looking at on the O-line. All of them are good. probably the first guy off the board, but there's going to be a run on these guys in the middle of that first round because, as soon as one goes, the Saints or the Jets, someone's going to want to get one. And if one goes and there's only one of those big three left, you're going to move up.
There'll be three positions where there'll be a run, and they're all on the same side of the ball. The three positions are going to be a run, going to be quarterback, wide receiver, and then that offensive line group. That'll be the run. There may be a run at some point when you'll start to see at edge rusher.
Yeah.
There won't be a run on linebackers. There probably won't be a run on safeties.
I guess corners there might be.
Corners there can be. I know the Eagles are taking a long. I was talking to Jody McDonald last week. I mentioned Jody Mack on the show. He grew up in a household of talent evaluation because his dad was Joe McDonald, the general manager of the Mets. So Jody Mack grew up in that kind of household.
Yeah.
But he was telling me that the Eagles would be looking at offensive line and corner were the two areas he picked out that he thinks they're going to go. And that's where they are. The Steelers may go offensive line. The Steelers may go offensive line to shore it up for Russell Wilson. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was on the Pittsburgh show last week, and they were asking me a lot about Olu. And then they asked me about Norzad, too. The Giants, when I was on the Giants podcast, they asked me about Norzad.
Yeah.
Now, Hunter, in all likelihood, is an early third-day pick, in all likelihood.
Yeah.
But Penn State could tie a record, a school record, for most guys drafted.
What's the record currently?
Right? At, 10? Something like that? Well, guess what? In a seven-round draft, back in 86, they had more rounds. My goodness, let me put it this way. Bart Starr was a 17th round pick.
Yeah.
Right? That's,
Yeah, says something.
Yeah.
The last position I want to talk about in terms of these guys for today is tight ends. The major guy of note in terms of first rounders is, of course, Brock Bowers out of Georgia.
And he should be. He's currently ranked 13th on ESPN's overall big board. You've got guys like Cade Stover and Theo Johnson in there as well for that top 5, top 6 tight end positions. But Bowers is the guy who's going to be a first rounder. We've seen it in the past with a guy like Pitts, who, of course, went to the Falcons. Where do you rank the value of Bowers going into the NFL? Because tight ends are really weird when it comes to the draft. Well, let's go back to my comments yesterday about Theo Johnson, which is really essentially the same comment about Rob Gronkowski. When you are too fast for a linebacker and you're too big for a safety, you are a matchup nightmare. Brock Bowers is a matchup nightmare. Theo Johnson's a matchup nightmare.
Yeah.
I think the team, if they have the ability to block from whether it's the tight end, 3-point stance position, or the H-back spot, then you have a slice of gold there, because the entire point, yes, you want big plays. You want big plays. But there are too many points in the game where you need to move the chains. And a guy like Bowers is going to do that. And he's going to do it consistently. Bowers has all the ingredients to be a Pro Bowl guy, and all the ingredients to be a Pro Bowl guy in his first season. I mean, he has a lot going for him. That if a team wants, it's one thing to put guys on the outside, Dunzier, right, Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, God, LSU had a lot of guys. But boy, if they could just play defense. I'm trying to think what Brian Kelly's forte is. All right, but yes, you want that home run hitter. There's no question about that. But you win a lot of games with singles and doubles.
That you do.
And guess what? And Bowers is a guy that can make big plays from the tight end spot, right? Like Theo Johnson makes plays from the tight end spot. Gets you a lot of first downs, makes plays. He can make some big plays, like against Auburn. He made a big play. I mean, you can pick out certain spots where he has. But Bowers consistently made big plays from the tight end spot. If a team is sitting there with that kind of need, well, I'll tell you, he's got to be a guy that I think there's got to be a couple teams that have been aching for him for the last 2 years for him to come out so they could pick him.
And the projection is anywhere for him from 6 to 18. So he could pretty much go anywhere in that lottery area. And it's going to be really interesting because someone's going to see him and say, I'm going to take him. Because pretty much everyone needs a tight end, unless your name is the Chiefs or like the Niners or a few other handful teams. Everyone needs a tight end. The Saints need a tight end. I've said this, that if the big tackles are gone, I want him. If the receivers are gone, if the tackles are gone, I want Brock Bowers because he is a difference maker. You can move him to receiver if you really needed to. Like, hypothetically, you could move him there. Right. He's still 6'3", he's big. As you said, he's a matchup problem for pretty much everybody. So move him there. It should work. So those are kind of the main guys to look at. There's also Marius Mims in terms of tackles from Georgia and a few other guys here and there that are first rounder type players. But the first round is going to be dominated by receivers, as we've said, quarterbacks, and just it's going to be a lot of people moving up to get the skill positions and on that offensive side of things.
Well,
and it's going to be real intriguing to see what happens.
Okay. Now remember what the setup to all of this is.
Yes.
The setup to this is quite simple. Who did you lose in free agency? And a lot of times you chose not to re-sign.
Yeah.
Number two, who did you pick up in free agency? So in other words, the guys you picked up in free agency are guys that have filled gaps for you. So what gaps are remaining that now sets up your draft? That's how you have to look at a team at this point. You can't just sit back and say, in February, they need to draft X, Y, and Z. Well, then you go out in the free agency and you take care of Z. Well, now I got to worry about X and Y. I mean, that's how that works at this level. In other words, the Steelers are not drafting a quarterback.
What?
Right? No, they're not going to draft a quarterback because in free agency, they got Russell Wilson, and then they made, and then there was the pickup of Justin Fields. So that's not on the board. Now, I'm not saying it was on the board before, but in other words, by doing that, that's off the board. Denver picked up Zach Wilson. Why? To make it easier for J.J. McCarthy? I'm telling you, that team's trading up. They got to trade up.
I would be thoroughly surprised if they really are, you know what, we're going to go with Zach Wilson. We're gonna put this team and give Zach Wilson the job, because that totally worked out for the Jets very clearly and will definitely work out for us too. It makes no sense. No sense at all.
But again, remember how the setup goes. Your needs now might be slightly different than they were before the free agency system started. Right? Once the system started and you then went, okay, well, we took care of corner, or we took care of they may be short-term deals, but you sign them for a reason, right? That then allows you to zero in on what you want to do in the first round of the draft, actually the first 2 days of the draft. The important part is to also remember it is a 7-round draft. You can find heavy value in rounds 2 and 3, and you can find value on the third day of the draft.
Oh yeah,
and we've seen that over and over again. The third day of the draft, because again, there are certain guys that may not test beautifully, but they're football players. You also may have somebody that was really good in college, and for whatever reason, they make a really nice transition to the NFL, and it's not the chasm for them for whatever reason. I mean, there are some people that are ultra talented, dominating college. They go to the pros, and they can't make the transition as smoothly. right? And then you get some guys on day 3 where they make the transition with complete ease, like, hey, they really stole that one in round 5. Like, and it turned out that the guy is just a player, and it's not a big deal. And, I mean, that's the part you can't tell. You can't tell. We're all guessing at this point who can make the fastest transition. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's part of it is guesswork.
Yeah.
And the quarterbacks are, of course, the ones that stick out the most. And here's one for you. I think there are going to be 6 quarterbacks in round 1, not 4.
So you think Knicks and Penix
and Knicks are going to go.
Okay. Well, currently, as ESPN has it,
again, it is a guess on my part.
It's a guess.
It's all it is a guess.
It's a guess. I'll make a bet with you. I know we're not betting people. I'll make a bet with you. If 6 quarterbacks go in round 1, I'll give you $1.
I won't take it.
Okay. Currently, as ESPN has it,
I won't take your $1.
I know.
It's like
as ESPN currently has through all the different fans doing the mock drafts and things, the current projection based on fans and also all the people they have, the Kuipers of the world, McShays, whoever else. Mm-hmm. They currently have Olu going to the Saints at 14. And they have Chop Robinson, who we'll discuss tomorrow with the D-line, going to the Vikings at 23 in terms of Penn State players in the first round. I would be surprised if Chop doesn't go in the first round.
Right. The Vikings are interesting because Sam Darnold is currently their quarterback.
They have a pick at 11, and they've got 23.
Right. 11's the one where I think they could say yes on that. Because when I was when we were in Minneapolis, right, remember the Vikings just signed Darnold.
Yeah.
And I think I made the comment to you when
the house that Darnold built.
We were on the train, which was, I would like to point out, an interesting experience.
That it was.
The last time we're doing that.
Yes, it is.
We'll leave it at that. And I said to you, look at the line for season tickets.
Yeah. But they have
the Sam Darnold era.
11 and 23, which you could definitely see them if they really wanted to move up to get one of the top guys, if one of them doesn't fall. They can move up to 4.
They can, but they'd have to couple. They may have to couple 11 and 23 to do it.
Yeah.
Now they could just give up 11 and move up and keep 23
in a first next year,
or maybe a 4th this year. Whatever.
Yeah.
And that 23 spot's still there for Chop Robinson to go.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this draft. If anyone wants to hear our chat from yesterday, of course, you could catch it on the channel, the full live show. We broke down all the Penn State players as well. It is up currently on our podcast on demand space. So look up 7 Mountain Sports on demand wherever you get your podcast from. You could hear myself and Steve discuss the Penn State guys. Tomorrow, Steve, of course, we've gone through the offense. We get to go defense tomorrow. I know you're so very excited. We'll chat D-line and linebackers tomorrow.
This is a great picture. Eric Carr sent this picture.
Beautiful.
Right. Eric Carr played basketball here at Penn State. Sent this picture. Murray's 3 with Davis bearing down on him.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Probably should have fouled him.
You should have fouled him. You know what matters most? The New York Knicks are 2-0, baby. 2-0.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover